Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You've met a number of Dublin taxi drivers, three of them to be precise, I think, and each one of them told you they were suffering from claustrophobia.
No, the first two did, and
First
then the
two.
third guy said that was the one that started the argument. He was like, "No,
Okay, well,
those two guys need to take you wherever you're going."
Well, tell us about the two of them that suffer from claustrophobia.
Well, I was the only person on the taxi rank, Dublin Airport, 9:30 on Sunday morning, a couple of weeks ago. Got into the cab, and the guy says, "Do you want to go into town or do you want to go through the tunnel?" And I said, "You're driving, whichever way is quickest. You take me whatever way you want to go." And he goes, "Town's really busy because the Mass in Crow Park. You have to go to the tunnel, but I don't do the tunnel. I'm claustrophobic. We'll put you in the cab behind." Then the cab behind, strangely enough, said, "No, I don't do the tunnel either. I'm claustrophobic." And then the third taxi was the one who suggested that both of the gentlemen in front of me needed to bring me into town or take me wherever I wanted to go. And then he called the supervisor, and they were all talking between themselves then, so I just walked off.
And where did the claustrophobia come into it?
I've no idea. I mean, I guess if you're claustrophobic, which the gentleman may genuinely be, then you won't want to drive through a tunnel, I suppose.
But hang on, he said to you, which way do you want to go?
Yeah.
You said the tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I said whichever way is the quickest.
Quickest, okay.
And
was there an issue
he
about...
gave me the option initially to go.
And you said the tunnel,
way.
and then he said, "No, no do tunnel, you get out."
He was nicer about it than that. He said, "I don't do the tunnel, I'm claustrophobic. You need to get into the taxi behind me."
You jumped into one behind, and he says, "I'm claustrophobic as well."
I didn't even get in the taxi behind. We had a little chat at the window, and he just told me there and then that he too was claustrophobic.
I've never heard of anyone who suffers from claustrophobia being unable to drive through a tunnel.
Well,
did they ask you about paying? It's €3 now most of the time, except it's €3. Did they ask you about paying the toll?
Money was never mentioned. Money was never mentioned, but I've been in London for 15 years,
yeah, so
and that to me is the equivalent of a taxi driver at Heathrow saying they're not going to bring me into town because they have to pay the congestion charge. But nobody even, if I'm not from Ireland, how am I supposed to know what the tunnel is or if it's a charge or whatever? It's like I needed to get to work on a Sunday morning in Dublin, and it wasn't an option for me to get a taxi.
Now, the third taxi driver who didn't suffer from claustrophobia,
he didn't claim to know. But he just said he was sort of making the point that the two lads in front of him should have brought me to wherever I needed to go. So at which point I just got bored, to be honest.
Why do you think they refused to take you?
I guess because I was only going into town, maybe.
I'm sure most people from the airport are going into town.
Well, I would imagine a lot of visitors to Ireland are going near or in or around town. It's just one of those things. I'm sorry I didn't have a sign saying bring me to Nace or whatever, but I needed to get to town. So I really didn't understand it. But to be honest, in hindsight, because I've told the story to a couple of people, and I'm not the first person that I now know this has happened to, so it's really interesting. That's why I decided to write to you. But
why? Hang on, you said there's other taxi drivers suffering from claustrophobia.
Well, I'm not sure about the claustrophobia, but I've heard stories from a few people who couldn't get into town by taxi because the drivers wouldn't go through the tunnel. So there seems to be a little interesting pattern developing here, but I would not believe that I've not experienced it myself.
Yeah, but because the tunnel is incredibly quick. It's an incredible.
Well, I was in town in 14 minutes on a bus for €6.
Which
Thank you.
Go through the tunnel.
That's all I wanted. Yeah. I need to get to work. If somebody doesn't want to work or they're unable to work because of a condition, then don't prevent other people from going to work. You
didn't say to the claustrophobic taxi drivers, like, have you got is there a medical certification of this? Or
the supervisor on the taxi rank started a conversation with the two claustrophobic taxi drivers saying they need to have a letter, they need to blah, blah, blah. And your man said, I don't have my letter with me today.
Well, you need a letter saying you're claustrophobic. Sure, how would you even sit in a car for hours if you were claustrophobic?
Yeah.
Had they really big cars, had they?
No, not necessarily. Juggernauts. No, not necessarily. Just your normal.
And what's your own theory?
Cars.
What's your own theory, Bernadette?
It felt like it was almost like a small interview when I arrived to see if I knew the lie of the land, if I knew my way around Dublin, and if I was going to suss out whether we could get into town quickly or slowly, and how much of a fare could be gained from the conversation. Yeah. So the fact that I was local and arrived and I seemed to have a pretty good suss on where I was going, and I only wanted to get to town, might be less of a fare than the hundreds of people not queuing behind me.
So in other words, if they can determine, they can use the tunnel excuse, the tunnel vision, and they can wait on a long distance run, a longer
run. They might
run.
be waiting a while though. There was nobody at the airport. 9:30 on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, but it means they don't have to go back around and get on the end of that queue, which is horrendous for taxis.
Why is that my problem?
I know that.
As a customer, this is customer service. This is public service. I'm the customer.
Have you ever come across claustrophobic taxi drivers in London?
I have to say I have not.
No, okay.
No, I've come across different types of taxi drivers, but not claustrophobic ones. No, it's just interesting. I mean, I thought the country could do with people's business coming into the city.
But you jumped on the bus and you were in town in 15
through the tunnel. I was in town for €6 in 12, 14 minutes.
Okay. But they should even put a sign up on the window, driver claustrophobic, no tunnel.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But, the tunnel is an alien concept to people who aren't from Dublin. How are you supposed to know?
I know.
You don't arrive in any other city being given the lowdown. Anyway.
Okay.
I don't know if you've got any theories on it or if it's a common complaint, but I just felt it needs to be flagged.
Let's try and find out if there is a phobia sweeping taxi drivers. Brenda, thanks indeed.